to be working on this week is the reading section, actually. So let me just get this. Okay. All right. So as you might know, the reading section is the first one that you'll find in your test. It's over 30, as all of the other sections, and it's a bit different than the writing in terms of, it's not as flexible as the writing. In the writing, you get to produce your own response. It's a production section, but in this one, it's more black and white. So you either know the answers or you don't. You get them right or wrong. So I would say, I don't know, some people say that time is the biggest struggle here. I think I agree with that. Another thing that people worry about will be vocabulary as well. So yes, you do have to have some academic vocabulary. And of course, you need to practice, reading so that you can get your reading comprehension skills in order. So yeah, so try to read any academic articles that you can find. Now, in the reading part, what you will have is 3 or 4 reading passages, which are also kind of like academic articles. So these are all on academic topics, so I cannot tell you which ones. So you can have things like humanities or business, finance. Sometimes you have like history or biographies or literature, or sometimes about something about technology, physics, biology, I don't know, what have you. But you will have 3 or 4 of them. So 3 or 4 reading passages, and each passage will contain 10 questions for you to answer. So 10 questions per passage, 3 or 4 sets of questions, okay, which makes a total of 30 or 40 questions. Now you may be wondering why I'm not giving you like an exact number, why I'm not saying like 3 or 4 exactly. So the thing is that the reading and the listening, they're kind of connected. Okay, so if in the reading you have the longer version, you get 4 passages, that means that in the listening, you will get the shorter one. So you will have a shorter listening version. But if you get 3 passages, the shorter reading, the longer listening, okay? So don't worry too much. It'll be fair no matter what. You will get more time if you get more passages. And one more thing, if you have 4 passages, one of them will be unscored, which basically means they won't be even looking at one of the passages. So you obviously don't know which one that's going to be. So of course you need to answer everything in the same way, but one of them is not going to worth any, it's not going to be worth anything. And as for time goes, you'll get 54 seconds. I'm sorry, 54 minutes. I think I'm still with the speaking part. So 54 minutes if you get 3 passages, or 76 minutes if you get 4 passages, all right? And that means that you should be finishing a passage in at least 18 minutes, all right? So again, 3 or 4 passages, 10 questions each, 54 or 76 minutes. Any questions so far? Is that okay? All right. Now, some things I gotta say. First thing, once you read, the reading is not gonna go anywhere. So it'll be there when you're answering. I think that the reading section is the one in which you can do more things, because the reading won't go anywhere. As I was saying, you can read first, or you can read and answer at the same time. You can jump around. You can start in question 1 and then go to 5, then move on to passage 2, then go back. It's like an open book, okay? You can do a lot of things in there. Now, there are many different strategies that you can decide to take, all right? So you can either read the entire passage first and then answer the questions, or you could look at the questions and then try to just read the part that you need to read for each question, So those are the 2 main strategies. I cannot tell you which one is better. Some people will tell you something. Some other people will have a different opinion. The thing is, just try to practice with both, and you gotta know what works for you, okay? Because it's different for everyone. Some people struggle with time. Some people run out of time constantly. That's my case. For example, I don't think I could make it in time, so I took the second strategy. But that depends, okay? Some other people are better with time. They think that they can understand better when they read the entire thing first. So if that's your case, then you can do that, okay? So my advice, just try to practice doing both and you'll easily realize what option is better for you, okay? So another thing I can say, never ever skip questions. This is something that you can never do because there's no penalty for a wrong answer. So if you don't answer something and if you answer it wrong, it's the same, all right? So you better take your chances, you take a guess, and you are gonna be, you have 25% of chances of getting it right. So who knows, you may even get the right one. So please never skip questions, don't leave them in blank. Always guess, okay? If you don't know what the answer is, just take a guess and move on. Now, another thing, even though you actually can jump around, try not to do it because there's no need of doing it. It's just gonna make you skip some questions accidentally, maybe make more mistakes. You're gonna lose the written. You're not gonna, have a better understanding of what the reading was about. So try not to jump around. Go in order, that's the best way. Don't get stuck. You know that time is always a problem here. So if you're not answering a question in like 1.5 minutes, then you better take a guess and move on to the next one because it's just gonna take up your time and you're not gonna be answering the next ones. What you can do though is you can take a piece of paper and you can mark the ones that you are guessing. So for example, if you didn't know the answer for question 7 in the first passage and you're just guessing, you can mark that one, circle it, or do some kind of thing, take notes on that. And when you're done with the whole reading section, then you can go back and try to see if you can figure out what the answer was, okay? But only when you're done with the whole reading section. Not in the middle of 2 passages, not when you're 5 questions left, so at the end of the whole reading section. Usually the questions go from easier to harder, so the final ones are the hardest ones. So hurry up at the beginning. Try to finish a passage in less than 18 minutes. I think 16 is an ideal number. And only review at the end of the whole reading. Okay, so some things I can say. I'm gonna send you these so that you don't have to really remember it all. But yes, I don't know if this is okay. If you maybe have some questions about this. Or about how the reading works or what you shouldn't do in the reading. I don't know. Okay, guys. So what we're going to be doing during this class and also next class is we're going to be looking at the types of questions. And that's the most important, the best thing we can do for the reading part. Okay? I could also tell you a bit of how the reading or the articles are going to be structured, but why don't we do that next class? Because I think this is more important. So the types of questions. There are 10 different types of questions that you can find in the reading. These are the ones. So you can have vocabulary questions, detail, except, inference, and so on. And some of them are more important than others. Why? Because of their frequency. So as you can see in this table here, this chart is showing how frequent each question is. So that basically means how many of them you can have per passage. So for example, vocabulary and detail, those are the most frequent ones. You can have, from 2 to 5, from 2 to 4, which is a lot, out of 10 questions. And then the summary or category question at the end, that's also important, not because you have a lot of them, but because it's worth a little bit more. So the summary question, I think, is worth like 2 of these questions. So that's why it's also important to look at it in depth. But remember, vocabulary, detail, it's important that you practice, that you know how to answer them, that you know the tricks, and summary as well. Okay? And we're going to be looking at all of them, but let's start with the first 2. So any questions before we do that, before we take a look at the types of questions? All right. So in order to do so, we're going to be using this. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, my connection wasn't working. Okay, sorry. So what I was saying is, in order to take a look at the questions, we're going to be using this reading practice set here, which is offered by the ETS, the official company that makes the TOEFL. So it should be similar to what you guys will be facing in the actual test. You know, the questions should be similar. They should give you a good idea of how it is. So that's where we're going to use it. And yeah, okay. So we're not going to read the entire passage. We're going to try to do the other way to save time. So we're going to go question and then the paragraph, question and paragraph, okay? So now, even if you don't read the entire thing, make sure that you at least read the title, okay? It's really important because it will give you a good idea of what it will be about. So here we have the rise of Teotihuacan. What do you guys think of this? What can you picture when you hear this? The rise of Teotihuacan. What do you think it'll be about? Any thoughts?
A civilization, maybe.
Maybe about well, this place called Teotihuacan and how, I don't know, how it is very visited by tourists.
Okay, could be. And what about the rise of Teotihuacan? What does that mean?
Maybe about the most special of that place or that community or that something special of that place or community.
Okay, I see, sure. So yes, you guys are right. Okay. Okay, guys. So I think, okay, sorry. So yes, you guys are right. It might be something related to that. It's probably a city, it's probably a culture, something like that. And maybe the rise, as you were mentioning, is related to all its characteristics, you know, how it arose, maybe the development of that city. It's probably history, something about geography, maybe. Okay. So let's start with the first type of question that we have, vocabulary questions. So personally, I would say these are one of my favorites because it doesn't require you to read the entire thing. You don't really have to read everything, and you don't have to waste that much time in one of these. It's a high frequency question, which means you'll have more than two. And what they're asking for is the synonym of a word that needs to match both in meaning and context. Okay, so it's not just the meaning, it's also the context. So you should be able to replace that word with another one in a portion of the text. So let's look at an example. We're going to be answering question 2 from this set. So this one here, the word ingenuity, blah, blah, blah. We're going to be answering that. So can anybody please read the question? Any options?
The question, teacher?
Yes, please.
Okay. The word ingenuity in paragraph 2 is closed in meaning to ambition, sincerity, faith, and cleverness.
Okay, thanks so much. So now the first thing I'm going to ask you is, do you guys know this word, ingenuity? Do you know a synonym, or which one do you think is closest to that word among these four options? Have you ever heard of that before? Ingenuity? Anybody?
It's cleverness, something
Okay.
that you're not so smart and something like that.
Okay, could be cleverness. Anybody else? It's another one.
Maybe it's for sincerity because people who are since ingenuity is considered when they always say the truth.
Okay, when they're honest. Okay. Right, guys. So now, how sure are you of your choices? Are you? I mean, who said sincerity? Who was that? Was it you, Camila?
No, I said cleverness.
Okay, so how sure are you of that one, cleverness?
Like 80% sure.
Okay. And what about who said sincerity?
I'm not sure because maybe I need to read the context of the paragraph. But yes, I think
Okay.
50% or maybe
Okay.
less.
All right, nice. So that's the
Teacher,
thing.
I'm
Yes,
sorry, could be faith?
could it be faith? Okay.
Yes.
How sure are you? Okay. So you're not so sure.
I'm 70%
Okay.
sure.
Okay, guys. So I would say if you're like 80 or more, like 85%, or obviously the more the better. If you're sure, pretty sure that that's the answer. If the other ones don't make that much sense, you're like, okay, cleverness and ambition, sincerity, faith are definitely out of the picture. They have nothing to do with what I know of ingenuity. So if you use this word, if you have seen it before, if you know the definition of what it means, or you can associate it to something, then just choose the one and move on, okay? Move to the next one. You don't even have to read. But if you're not that sure, if you're just guessing and you're like, I think it might be 50%, then in that case, you need to look at context. So that's what we're gonna do now. So, okay, so another tip. Usually you don't have to read the entire paragraphs for most of the questions, okay? There are some questions that ask you to like summarize the whole thing. So in that case, yes. But in most of them, it's not really that necessary, okay? But we will see. So one thing I do that has worked for me so far is always just read the first sentence, sometimes the two, if you want to have an idea of what the paragraph is about. Of course, you're going to miss a lot of details, but if you just want to know what the paragraph is about, you can read the first or the second sentence, and that's enough. Because usually in the first sentence, you have like a short introduction to the paragraph, okay? It's always like, so you have an idea and that's explored throughout the paragraph. So what we're gonna be doing now is just for these ones, I want you guys to read the whole paragraph. So you can read it on your own. I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes and then we'll talk about it, okay? So please read that paragraph. Okay. So, you done reading? So can anyone tell me what the paragraph was about?
It was about some of the reasons why Teotihuacan Valley had a tremendous development, and the paragraph gave some examples about that.
Okay, great. Yes, that's right, Camila. So yes, it's about the factors that influence the tremendous development that happened in Teotihuacan, or how this tremendous development took place and why it happened in Teotihuacan. So those are the factors. And actually, the word that we're looking for, ingenuity, is one of the factors, isn't it? Because it's part of the list. We have a lot of things like geographic location, natural trade route, the obsidian resources, the potential for extensive irrigation, and a bunch of other reasons why they developed so much, right? And one of those is ingenuity and foresightness of Teotihuacan's elite. So what you need to do when I say context, you need to find this word and relate it to the overall idea of the paragraph. So you need to ask, okay, so what does ingenuity have to do with the whole thing, with the main idea? So the main idea is about the factors, and ingenuity is one of the factors that influence the development of Teotihuacan. So that's how ingenuity is related to the paragraph, Now, that's gonna make you understand some things. So you can ask yourself now, what do you think would be a good, or not good, but something that matches the other ones? So I don't know, you need to think of a factor that influenced the development of the city. So would ambition, sincerity, faith, cleverness, I don't know, is there anyone that you could consider eliminating, maybe, that is not such a strong factor that will influence the development, maybe that doesn't really match the other ones that we have, like geographic location, obsidian resources? So what do you think? I don't know if you guys could eliminate some options out of this four.
Sincerity and faith.
Perfect. Yes, sincerity and faith. Even though I'm not saying that they're not important, but they don't really match what we have here, the context, because it's a bit out of context. This is not so much about the values or the religion. It's more about the more objective things, like geographic location, obsidian resources, and everything else. So ambition and cleverness. Now there's one more thing that we have here. We have the ingenuity and foresightness of Teotihuacan's elite. So ingenuity and foresightness, they go together. They must be related somehow. So do you guys know what foresightness means? Anybody knows that word?
It's like something to be aware of something.
Okay, yes, it does have to do with that. Okay. So yes, sometimes when you don't know the meaning of a word, you can try to break it down, because there are some, I don't know if I'm correct about this, I think they're called compound words. So they come from something else. For example, the word cleverness comes from clever, right? The adjective. So that ness at the end of foresightness doesn't really, it's not adding anything to the meaning of the word foresightness, it's just foresight. So you know this word, right? Sight. You guys know what it means? It's basically the ability to see, right? It's one of the senses, comes from see. And for, I don't know if you can think of some words similar or that you could associate to this prefix that we have for. Is there any words you can think of?
Maybe look at the future.
Okay,
Foresightness.
perfect. Yes, that's it. To look at the future, to see the future. I was thinking of the words forecast. So, the weather forecast, like the prediction of the weather, or foreshadowing, which is something used in literature, when you know something that's going to happen later. So it does have to do with seeing or looking at the future predicting the future, being aware of what's going to happen, and obviously doing something about it, you know, like have your provisions. So that's for sightness. Okay, guys? So now that you know that, which one would make more sense? Ambition and foresighteness of Teotihuacan Celi, or cleverness and foresighteness of Teotihuacan?
Cleverness.
Yeah, right?
Cleverness.
Okay, so perfect. That's it. You got it. It's cleverness. It was the correct one. So as you can see, some of you were right. Some of you said cleverness. So I think it was Camila, right? You said you were 80% sure. So I think that's enough. You knew what ingenuity was, so you can just move on. But in case you don't know, now here's something that is tricky. So ingenuity, some people will associate that to ingenuidad in Spanish, right? Because ingenuity, idad, ingenuidad. It looks like it, but it's not the same. I think ingenuity is ingenio, right? So if you're thinking of ingenuidad, then you're gonna obviously choose sincerity, and that's tricky, you know, because it's not that one. Because ingenuity is not ingenuidad. So unless you're almost or 100% sure that ingenuity means ingenuidad, and that means sincerity, and then you can go ahead and choose that one. But if you're doubting yourself, you're like, well, I don't know, I'm just guessing, then you need to try to think about it a bit more. Okay, so don't associate words to what you think you know in Spanish, because sometimes you have these fake, or I think they're false friends called. So, and I don't know, this makes me think they even do it on purpose, you know, but careful there. Okay, so again, meaning and context. Any questions about that? Oh, this one here. Okay, guys. So the next one we're going to be looking at is detailed questions or factual questions. So what I like about these ones is that you don't have to do much reasoning. This is something that's going to be directly stated in the paragraph. They're going to be asking you for a very specific piece of information. So it's not something that that you have to, you know, like think it through. It's just something that you will find there. It's just that you look for it. It'll be there, I promise. So it's a high frequency question, 2 to 4 per passage. And everything comes down to finding keywords, narrowing down your information, and paraphrasing it. Okay, so you'll know what I mean in a bit. So let's do this one. We're gonna be answering question 5 from this set. Let's see. Now, will anybody please read this question here? You guys?
No. Which of the following allowed Teotihuacan to have a competitive edge over its neighbors?
Okay. And the options, did you read the options? No? Is it my... Okay, so which of the following allowed Teotihuacan to have a competitive edge over its neighbors, right? We have a well-exploited and readily available commodity, the presence of highly stable elite class, knowledge derived directly from neomics about tool making, and D, scarce natural resources in nearby areas. So what we will do now is, please, I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to read the paragraph and try to come up with something. Try to think of what the answer is, let me know when you. Okay, guys. So what do you think? Any guesses?
A.
Okay. Anybody else? Anyone has a different one? You'll agree with A?
Letter B, probably.
Okay, letter B. Okay, guys. So nice. I'm glad that you have those options, A and B. I would eliminate C and D. Let's see why. So the first thing that we were saying is that you need to look for your keywords. Okay, so those keywords are basically words that are both in the text and in the question, not in the options, in the question. Okay, so something that you're being asked about. So in this case, we're being asked on what allowed Teotihuacan to have a competitive edge over its neighbors. So right now it's quite easy because we have a quote. It's here, it's something that it's obviously there, it's a quote. Sometimes you will have something a bit harder, you know, it's not always going to be that quote. It could be something, you have synonyms. It could be saying something like, I don't know, an advantage over its competitors or an advantage over other cities. Okay, but anyhow, you just need to try to identify that thing that you're being asked about. Now, once you find the keywords, I guarantee you guys that it's going to be close to that. So it's going to be probably in the same sentence in the previous one or in the following one, but it's not, the answer is not going to be in the whole paragraph. And that's a mistake that many people make here. So they do like a summary and they include different parts from the paragraph and they come up with the wrong one, you know? So that's why this is called a detailed question or a factual question, because they're asking for something very detailed, something very specific, very direct, okay? It's not gonna be a summary. So once you have this, you just read between the lines. We have Teotihuacan's natural resources, along with the city and its ability to recognize their potential, gave the city a competitive edge over its neighbors. So you gotta ask yourself, giving the city a competitive edge, is it the same as saying allowing the city to have a competitive edge? Is it the same? Is it close enough? Giving the city or allowing it to have? What would you say? Yeah, right. I think it's practically the same. This is what allowed the city to have a competitive edge over its neighbors. Teotihuacan's natural resources and the city elite's ability to recognize reputation. So once you have narrowed down your information, you have come up with that sentence where you know the answer is, you have to forget about everything else. You didn't even have to read the entire thing, you know? We don't care about anything that appears next in a paragraph. So that's why C and D couldn't be the answer, you know, because it's talking about Mexican highlands, tool making, Olmecs. So it's definitely not C and D. We know what the answer is Teotihuacan's natural resources and the city elite's ability. So the next thing you need to do, the one thing you have left, is of course paraphrase that, because it's never going to be as easy as finding an option that says A, Teotihuacan's natural resources along with the city elites, blah, blah, blah. It's not ever going to look that easy, right? So you need to paraphrase that, find an option that is saying the same in different words, and that's going to be the one. So can anyone, you know what the answer is? The answer was actually A. So most of you were right. A well-exploited and readily available commodity. Now, well, can anybody tell me why B couldn't be the answer? Why not B?
I think because the answer B says the presence of a high established elite class, but in the paragraph it says the elite's ability, not the presence of the elite in themselves.
Okay, yes, that's right. Correct. Okay. So yes, and one more thing. You know that here we have two elements, right? What gave the city a competitive edge? And we have two things. First, their natural resources, and second, the ability to recognize them. So there are two things. It's obviously related to the elite class, but it's also about the natural resources they had. And option B doesn't say anything about their natural resources. So remember that your answer is going to be a paraphrase of what you have found. It cannot leave anything behind, like the natural resources, and it cannot include anything from somewhere else, like Mexican highlands or tool making, right? So option, if you want to go farther than that, because we have eliminated all the three, but if you really want to understand why A is the answer, you just need to try to think of, you know, the synonyms that you have in here. So what would you guys say readily available commodity is? What's that? What does that mean?
A natural resource that is ready to be explored.
Great, perfect. So yes, commodity is basically resources. It doesn't mean again commodidad, right? Even though it looks like it. And yes, it's the goods, the wealth that you have, the resources that you have, and readily available, as you were saying, you know, it's just that it was ready for you to use from the moment the city was established. So readily available for the city to use. And well exploited has to do with the fact that the city elite was able to identify what they had and obviously exploit those natural resources, you know? That's what was the answer. You guys got it right. So you have a good gut feeling. So any questions about this one or comments? What do you think about it? Okay, so what time is it? Okay, so what we're gonna be doing now, looking at the third type of question, you'll see that this one is even easier than. So we have the accept type of question, which is basically the same as the other one, the one that we just saw. But in this case, they're not going to be asking for information that is mentioned in the paragraph. They're going to ask for information that's not in the passage. So careful. I think some people make a mistake, not because they don't know the answer, but because they're not reading the question carefully. So you got to pay attention to that not in there. They're not as frequent as the other ones. You can have one or two. And the only way that, I mean, the only thing you need to do here is just, it's like a checklist, okay? Like a recipe. You have your text, you have the options, You just need to go checking one by one to see which ones are mentioned. And the one that you have left, that's the one that you need to choose, you know? So it's like when you're baking something, you have your recipe, okay, eggs, check, milk, check, and the one that you have left is the one that you need to buy. So this is it. So we're gonna be reading this. The good thing is that it's the same paragraph, so we're just gonna read the question. Can anyone please do that for me? Read the question.
Which of the following is not mentioned in paragraph 2 as a main factor in the development of Teotihuacan? Letter A, the presence of obsidian in Teotihuacan Valley. Letter B, the potential for extensive irrigation of Teotihuacan Valley lands. Letter C, a long period of volcanic inactivity in the Teotihuacan Valley. And letter D, Teotihuacan's location on a natural trade route.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm gonna give you 1 or 2, well, in this case, just 1 minute. So take a look at the reading once more and try to figure out what the answer is. Okay. What isn't mentioned as a main factor?
Letter C.
Okay. Do you all agree?
Yes, I think. Letter C.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So nice, well done. It is letter C, a long period of volcanic inactivity. And you're completely right. So, I mean, some things I could say here as tips, maybe careful with the keywords, you still need them. We have it here. I think this one here. The obsidian resources, we have it here. The potential for extensive irrigation is here. The only one that's missing is letter C, as you guys said. So yeah, careful with the keywords, you know, because then we have exact role of other factors, and then we have something about natural disasters, volcanic eruptions, but that's not what we're looking for, is it? We're looking for main factors, not other factors. So we don't care about anything that comes next. We're just looking for this list here. So identify your keywords. Usually you will have that list of things. It's curious because every time you see one of these not, you're most likely going to find a list. So it could be in one sentence, separated by commas. It could be sometimes in a whole paragraph with periods, but it's always a list. So you just need to check. So piece of cake, right? Okay, guys. So I don't know if you have any questions about this one or anything we've seen today, any of the questions or the reading. We'll continue next class with the next ones we have. So yeah. Any questions or comments? Okay then, guys. So please, before you go, don't forget the daily survey should be in your screens. Okay, nice. So thanks so much for joining today. I'll see you all on Thursday. Hope you have a nice night.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank
See
you,
you tomorrow.
teacher.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
teacher.
teacher.
Goodbye.
Bye, teacher. Thank you.
Bye.